Alright, what's happening everybody? It's your boy Keen and welcome to the Pro Football Exclusive College Football Blog. We are our midway point to the season. We are headed to week 8 of the college football year and I have a lot of key matches for you this week. 20 all together. So I'll try to go through every game one by one as quickly as possible for today's blog. Now I'm going to start with Thursday night's matchup between number 3 Oregon at Arizona State. Arizona State is still unranked, just off the top 25. I believe that this is a ranked opponent in Arizona State. They have a good team overall. Will Sutton, the star defensive lineman for the Sun Devils, he's actually making a good run for the Defensive Player of the Year award of the Pac-12 Conference, as well as they have a good head coach, and Todd Graham, he can make a run for head coach of the year of the Pac-12. Now this Arizona State team is a good team overall, and they can pull this upset against number 3 Oregon. But I'm going to stick with the Ducks in this one. I think because of that high explosive offense, it's going to be too much for that Arizona State defense. Sorry, Justin, I have to go against your team on this one. Next game we need to talk about, heading towards Saturday. Number 6 LSU has an early game at 12 o'clock against number 18 Texas A&M. Now they have a star freshman quarterback in Johnny Manziel, talking about the Aggies, and they can pull this upset as well. But this is going to be against a tough LSU defense. I do believe in Texas A&M. They only have one loss this season to an SEC team their first game of the season against Florida, 20-17, and they can pull this upset. But I think this game is going to be too much for them because this is a big national spotlight, and this could give them a lot of recognition. I have to go against Kevin Sumlin, who's having a great year in his first year as the Aggies head coach, but I think Sumlin's going to be in for a rude awakening. Plus, LSU is going to refuse to lose to a freshman quarterback. So I'm going to have to go with the Tigers in this matchup. Next game we need to talk about, same time at 12 o'clock, number 15 Rutgers is going to be traveling to Temple. The reason why I'm mentioning in this game is because the Temple Owls are 2-0 in conference play. Now I'm still going to stick with the Rutgers Scarlet Knight. That defense is too much of Kasim Green. He can make a run for the Big East Defensive Player of the Year award. And then on the offensive side, they have a decent quarterback in Gary Nova and workhorse running back Jawan Jameson. They're going to be leading the way on that offensive side. I think they're going to outscore Temple, so I'm going to have to go with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights on this matchup. Next game we need to talk about, Virginia Tech is going to be traveling to number 19 Clemson. Virginia Tech has been falling apart for the past 3 games, and I think they're going to still struggle against this Clemson team. Look out for DeAndre Hopkins. He's having a spectacular season. He's that top weapon this year for the Clemson Tigers. All eyes are more on Sammy Watkins, and they're forgetting that they have another great receiver for the Clemson Tigers in DeAndre Hopkins. I think he could be due for a good game. And Andre Ellison, he needs to get the ball rolling again. Started the season off great, but then struggling for the past couple of games. I think he needs to get everything going together on the ground attack. Still averages over 5 yards per carry. I'm going to go with the Clemson Tigers in this matchup. Next game we need to talk about, number 24 Iowa State is going to be traveling to Oklahoma State. To me, I think the Cowboys are probably the biggest disappointing team of the Big 12 Conference this year. They have a good running back in Joseph Randle, who has been pounding the rock this season, but they have been losing a lot of key matches. They got spanked by Arizona earlier in the season, and they lost to Texas. I thought they had a chance of beating Texas, but I still had to go with my Longhorns. Their defense was just a little bit too much for them in that matchup. But with those 2 losses, especially against the loss against Arizona, they're kind of disappointing to me. Now they're looking forward to bounce back and pulling this upset. But I'm just going to stick with the Cyclones in this one because of their star linebackers, Jake Knott and A.J. Klein. They're going to be leading the way. I think they're going to have a chance of stopping that run and stopping Joseph Randle to under yardage. And they're going to have to put quarterback Walsh and put him under pressure and throwing the football well against that Iowa defense. And plus, Iowa has a good receiver in Jocelyn. I think that's going to be just enough to outscore and beat Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State. Next game we need to talk about, this is going to be my upset game of the week for week 8 of the college football season. Number 20 Stanford is going to be traveling at Cal. Now this is a huge rivalry showdown dating back in the early 80s, where California ended up running the kickoff return back. That was one of the most historical games in college football history, and they're looking to pull that upset against number 20 Stanford, who has 2 losses this season. Zach Maynard still leading the way at the quarterback for the Cal Bears, and I think they're going to outplay Thomas, Scope, and all the defensive studs on the Stanford Cardinals. I'm going to have to go with California pulling off the upset for week 8, upset of the week. Next game we need to talk about, one of the games of the week, not my game of the week, but this is probably the second biggest game in my opinion. Number 7, South Carolina is going to be traveling to Gainesville to face the number 2 Florida Gators. They actually bumped their rankings in the AP poll because of what we saw last week. South Carolina lost, and Florida ended up getting that notch up. This is an improving team, and Will Muschamp can make a run for SEC Coach of the Year. He's having a spectacular season in his second year as head coach. Now for Florida, they have 5 key starters coming returning for this matchup, including star middle linebacker Jelani Jenkins. He's coming back from a hamstring injury. He should be okay and start on the defensive side, and this could be a problem for South Carolina because they're going to be playing against another tough defense, just like they did against in their loss last week to LSU. Now for South Carolina, they have a pretty good defense as well. Jadeveon Clowney, he's having a great year. He's going to be that key guy I'm going to be looking at in this matchup, and getting to Jeff Driscoll, having a couple of sacks and wreaking havoc in that line of scrimmage. Now for this matchup, this is going to be a second upset for me. I'm going to go with the Gamecocks in this one, giving Florida their first loss. This is an SEC East showdown, and Florida's looking to stay alive and stay undefeated, but South Carolina's going to try to stay alive and make it to the SEC championship. I think they can with Connor Shaw at quarterback. He's doing pretty well this year, and I think this team can redeem themselves and do better from what their performance last week and their loss to LSU. I think they're going to pull the upset against Florida, so I'm going to have to go with the Gamecocks in this one. Another game that could be upset alert, the next game we need to talk about, BYU is going to be traveling to South Bend to face the Fighting Irish. Now this is an easy choice for me because BYU, they have been struggling for the past couple of games, especially with the loss last week to Oregon State. I'm going to go with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in this one. Ranked 5th in the nation. That defense, they have a lot of stud players, including Monte Tea, who I've been mentioning before. Now the question that concerns me is quarterback Evan Golston. He should be returning. He should be expected to play in this matchup. He suffered a concussion last week against Stanford in their overtime victory. But I'm still going to stick with the Fighting Irish, even if Everett Golston is out. They still have a good quarterback, a backup quarterback, a reliable backup quarterback, and Tommy Reese. He could be leading the way. In number 11, he's a good quarterback overall. I think he's a better passer than Everett Golston anyway. But I think the Fighting Irish is going to win. This is going to be a big warm-up matchup for them for next week in their game against ranked opponent OU, Oklahoma Sooners. This is going to be a good matchup to look at for you guys next week. Next game we need to talk about, number 17, Texas Tech is going to be traveling to number 23, TCU. Texas Tech pulled off the upset pick game of the week over number 5, then number 5, West Virginia, and they're still high flying. That defense had a great matchup, and they're going to be throwing the ball effectively against this TCU Home Frogs, and they ended up playing a good passing team last week against Baylor and crushing them 49-21. They're looking to do the same at home against Texas Tech, but I think Texas Tech's defense is going to keep getting everything together and putting pressure on the quarterback and wreaking havoc in that line of scrimmage. They have a good defense overall because of their performance last week. I got to go with the Raiders in this matchup. Heading over to the Big Ten Conference, Nebraska's going to be traveling to Northwestern. Northwestern only has 1 loss, but they have not really dealt with much bigger competition like Nebraska. Now this is going to be a test for the Wildcats and head coach Pat Fitzgerald. Now they have the home field advantage, and I'm actually going to go with the Wildcats in this one. They have a good team overall. They don't really have many studs, but they work together as a unit and as a team. And in Taylor Martinez, they're going to be causing problems for the Northwestern Wildcats, but I'm still going to stick with the Wildcats pulling off the somewhat upset, even though they have a better record than Nebraska. I'm going to have to go with Northwestern in this matchup. ACC, this is going to be a good matchup to look at 3:30. Unranked teams between North Carolina State at Maryland. This is going to be a key matchup because both these teams are pretty good in the ACC. North Carolina State ended up upsetting Florida State a couple weeks in their matchup, and in Maryland, they're still undefeated in ACC play, 2-0. Now for North Carolina State, they're going to have to keep their eyes on all-purpose player Stephon Diggs, especially on the deep route. Stephon Diggs averages over 21 yards per reception. He gives you good yardage after the catch, and he's a big deep ball threat as well as an all-purpose player. He's ranked in the top 10 nationally in all-purpose yardage, especially being a true freshman. He's going to be that key player for Maryland, and North Carolina State's going to have to keep an eye on him and keep containment of him. I think that North Carolina State's going to pull that win. David Emerson, he's leading the way with 3 interceptions for the Wolfpack. I think he's going to cause problems for this Stephon Diggs because of his experience and his maturity. I'm going to have to go with North Carolina Carolina State, and Sean Glennon leading the way at quarterback. Next game we need to talk about in-state rivalry, Michigan State at Michigan. This is an easy pick for me because of the ability of the defense for Michigan State. I'm going to have to go with Denard Robinson and the Michigan Wolverines. I had a lot of high hopes. Excuse me. I had a lot of high hopes for Michigan State, particularly on the defensive side. They have good players in William Golston and Denikos Allen. But both these two players have not been living up to expectations this season. They're having slouch senior year, and they were actually looking to boost up their stock for the 2013 NFL Draft. And because of their performance, their stock has been dropping a lot. They really need to start redeeming themselves and start playing hard in order to impress these NFL scouts. But I think Denard Robinson is going to be way too much for him, throwing and running the football effectively. I have to go with the Wolverines in this matchup. Next game we need to talk about, heading over to the night games at 7 o'clock. Number 1, Alabama is going to be traveling to Tennessee to face the Volunteers. This could be a big upset alert, but Alabama looks way too much. They playing way too much like an NFL team. They're going to be way too much for Tyler Bray and the Volunteers. This is an easy pick for me. They're just going to be too much for this Tennessee team. Roll Tide all the way. Now, next match I need to talk about, in-state game between Toledo hosting number 21 Cincinnati. Toledo only has one loss this season, and that's why I had to call off this game. And while Cincinnati is still undefeated, Toledo, they have a good offense overall, and with that one loss due to Week 1's loss to Arizona, this team has been going undefeated ever since, and they can give Cincinnati a run for their money. But I'm still going to go with Munchie Legault and Cincinnati. I think they're going to pull off the win and stay undefeated, heading over to more Big East competition. Next thing you need to talk about, in-state rivalry, one of the biggest rivalries in sports history, North Carolina at Duke. But this is a football rivalry in this matchup compared to the basketball. We all know about the history between North Carolina and Duke as basketball powerhouses. But this year in football, both these teams are 5-2. And I have to give kudos for Coach David Cutler, who could be a run for ACC Coach of the Year. He's leading this team to a 5-2 season, and one player in particular, Connor Vernon, breaking ACC records. He's a great receiver, and I'm looking for more improvement in quarterback Sean Renfrey. I thought he was going to have a breakthrough senior season, still struggling a little bit, but he's still shown a little bit improvement throughout his career in college football, and I think he's going to end his senior season a little bit way better than his previous season at quarterback. Now for this matchup, I'm going to have to go with the Tar Heels in this one. Brent Renner and Giovanni Bernard, thank God he's back for the Tar Heels. He's been running well, coming back from injuries, and I think he's going to be very effective in this matchup. He's going to be way too much for the Duke Blue Devils. I have to go with UNC in this matchup. Sticking with the ACC, number 14 Florida State's going to be traveling to the U to face the Hurricanes. In-state rivalry. This is one big rivalry in college football. I have to go with the Noles in this one. Miami, they still have a good quarterback in Stephen Morris, but the Seminoles have a way better defense than the Hurricanes. This could be an upset alert for the Noles, but because of their upset to UNC State, North Carolina State, they're looking to redeem themselves and stay focused on winning the ACC championship. I'm going to have to go with the Florida State Seminoles in this matchup. Heading back to the Big Ten at 8 o'clock, 4-2 teams, Penn State at Iowa. Both these two teams are undefeated in Big Ten play. Now, I mentioned before earlier in the season in my preview that Penn State is out of Big Ten championship competition, but they can still ruin some seasons for teams of the Big Ten. Starting with Iowa, I think they could pull this upset in this matchup because Iowa's doubtful they're going to have to play without star running back Mark Wiseman. He's dealing with an ankle injury, and he's doubtful to play in this matchup. Also, Penn State has won 4 straight games after suffering their first 2 defeats in their first 2 games. They won 4 straight after that, and it has a lot of momentum headed towards their direction. Bill O'Brien, he should get a good nod for Big Ten Coach of the Year. He's having a brilliant season as his first year as head coach, replacing Joe Paterno. I have to go with the Nittany Lions in this matchup. Next game we need to talk about, this could be an upset alert, but not too much. Go with the Utah Utes against the number 8 Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State still undefeated. Utah is 2-4, but they still have a good defense. I think they can make the Beavers a run for their money, but they have a good backup quarterback in Cody Voss. 332 yards last week and 3 touchdowns against BYU to replace Sean Mannion. They ended up replacing a good quarterback with another good quarterback, so they should be still all set and all good. I have to go with the Beavers in this matchup, but Utah can make a run for their money based on their defense. Now, my game of the week in the Big 12 Conference. Number 4, Kansas State at West Virginia. West Virginia has the home field advantage, and I still have them as my pick for the Big 12 championship. I have to go with West Virginia in this matchup, giving Kansas State their first loss. Now, one thing in particular for West Virginia, they suffer and they had struggled against that pass defense, and Kansas State is not a passing team. Now, I think West Virginia can stop the run a little bit, but that defense is just horrific overall, and I think that Geno Smith is still going to redeem himself from last week's loss against Texas Tech. I think he's going to be effective passing the football to both Stedman Bailey and Tavon Austin. I'd have to go with West Virginia pulling off the upset, giving Kansas State the first loss and keeping things interesting in the Big 12 conference. So I'm going to have to go with the Mountaineers over the Wildcats. Now, next time I'm going to catch you guys is on